Finding a fun, worthwhile MMORPG to play can be a trial in and of itself. Even more so, finding a new MMO to play seems almost impossible, and that is what I am here today to discuss with you guys. See, there are plenty of upcoming MMORPGs slated for release in 2021 and 2022, but there are only a handful of them that have had global confirmed releases for 2021. And that's what we're here today to talk about. Upcoming MMORPGs that have been confirmed to be releasing that you can play in English this year. And real quick, before we go ahead and jump into this video, I want to let you guys know that we stream every MMORPG we play, every upcoming MMO, over on our Twitch channel at twitch.tv/MMOBite. We're going to be streaming the PSO2 New Genesis beta. We're going to be streaming the Swords of Legends Online beta. We're going to be streaming the ELYON beta. We're going to be streaming Blue Protocol over there when it comes out. So if you are not following us over on Twitch, if you want to see whether these MMORPGs are worth playing before you go ahead and either invest money or time into them, then come on over and follow us. We stream every single week. Also, quick FYI, I am going to be doing a giveaway of 1 copy of Swords of Legends Online, 1 copy of ELYON, and 1 copy of New World. All you have to do to win this is be subscribed to the channel, so go down and subscribe right now, and leave a comment stating which game you'd like and why you'd like that game. Winners will be announced over on my Twitter. Now, let's go ahead and start this off with Swords of Legends Online. This is an Asian MMORPG that kind of came out of nowhere. I didn't even know that this was coming. I was still under the impression that the next Asian themed MMORPG that we would be getting would be Moonlight Blade, and Moonlight Blade was going to be published by Nexon. So I figured if we were ever going to get that, it would be like a decade from now. But here we are. A more updated version of Moonlight Blade in the form of Swords of Legends Online is going to be released over here in the West. It is currently going into alpha testing. It is then going to go into beta testing shortly after, and it is expected to release within a few months of this video going live. I am going to be alpha testing this game. I am going to be beta testing this game live. And let me tell you, I am genuinely excited for this. Some of my favorite MMOs have been Chinese-inspired games like this. I invested so much time into Perfect World International. 2 entire years I spent in that game every single day grinding away at it. I loved the look and feel of Revelation Online. I just feel like it was handled really terribly. But this game right here, Swords of Legends, looks like it's going to be a huge hit. Not only has it been confirmed to not have a pay-to-win cash up, not only is the game aesthetically stunning, like this is one of the games that probably look the most appealing to me graphically. Not only does the game utilize a hybrid action combat system, but this is an entirely open world MMO that has a lot of features that I want out of a game long term. While this is no doubt going to very likely require a certain level of grind, as all Chinese MMOs do, this at its core is still going to be a very traditional MMO experience. You have dungeons, you have raids, you have various PvP modes. There are a lot of unique classes to choose between. Each class has 2 different classes that it can spin off into. The classes are different to what you find typically in your traditional fantasy MMOs. I feel like a lot of Chinese-inspired MMOs have that unique class spin on things. They don't have basic things like the paladin, the archer, the mage, the warrior. Instead, they have like a flute user and a harp user. They have javelin users and classes that use all of those floating swords that you see in those wuxia inspired movies. This is a game that looks like it could definitely be something to invest a lot of time into. I really do not know how the end game for this game is going to be necessarily. I never played the Chinese version of it, but playing a game is not explicitly about the end game. It is also about the journey to end game, or that's at least how I view my experiences in MMOs. Next up, we're going to be talking about ELYON. This is an MMO that is being developed by the very same people that developed Terra and is being published over here in the West by Kakao Games. Kakao Games are the people that published Black Desert Online over in the West up until recently, where Pearl Abyss took control back of the game. Now, I have beta tested ELYON over when it was released in South Korea, and honestly, it was a very beautiful game. The game utilized a very nice, very fluid action combat system, not as fast and flashy as something like Black Desert, but the game definitely felt substantially different to how it felt back when it was Ascend Infinite Realm. See, when it was Ascend Infinite Realm, it was a very steampunk inspired, very aerial based MMO. A lot of the content that you did, at least for I think like the first 20 or so levels, was literally achieved by flying from little archipelago to archipelago. In ELYON though, from what I can tell, the vast majority of the game is grounded, so they cut those aerial elements of the game out and made it much more traditional in the sense that the game takes place predominantly on the ground as opposed to in the air. Now, I think they mentioned that they have plans on reintroducing aerial activities in the game, but to what degree, I am uncertain. Now, I noted that ELYON does in fact use an action combat system. I was surprised to see that it actually felt as smooth and fluid as it did. One of the issues that I found with ELYON was the fact it was built on Unreal Engine 3, so there are instances where you kind of feel those FPS drops, because admittedly, Unreal Engine 3 is just drastically inferior to Unreal Engine 4, which is what the majority of MMOs these days are built on, including mobile games. Now, ELYON is entirely open world. I explored so much of it during the South Korean beta test from level 1 through level 40. I don't remember what the level cap was. I think it might have been 45, it might have been 55. I never hit endgame, so again, I don't really know what specifically you do at endgame. I know that the zones didn't really seem all that different. There was just one large zone that we preoccupied during the beta test. I don't know if there are additional zones and if those zones are segregated from one another or they're connected into one enormous world, but either way, there were a lot of quests to do. There were a lot of various different dailies and repeatable missions you could do. The game was not in any way a grind like Swords of Legends might end up being, or like Black Desert Online is, or Revelation Online was. The character creator in ELYON was also pretty extensive. I created a really good looking character, and MRSSSTIX created a really good looking character. Our characters were both very unique, very different to one another, and I just want to note, again, we were going to be streaming ELYON over on our Twitch channel. I think it's going to be on May 7th, so probably about a week or so after this video goes live. If you want to go ahead and get a gauge on whether or not this is going to be worth buying, because like Swords of Legends Online, which I forgot to mention by the way, is buy to play, ELYON is also going to be a buy to play MMO. And I know buy to play MMOs are a turnoff for some people because they just cannot afford it, and I completely understand. So I guess I probably should have prefaced this with that. Next, we're going to talk about PSO2 New Genesis. This is substantially different to PSO2, where PSO2 is a hub-based MMO, as in you occupy a hub up in space, your ship. In this game, you are down on Earth, and the world is pretty much entirely open. It's segregated, don't get me wrong. There are segregated zones disconnecting them from one another, kind of like is present in Blade and Soul, kind of like is present in Final Fantasy XIV, but the world itself is so much larger. It is not instanced off. You could see a large number of players, both within the cities themselves, both within the zones themselves. You're not limited to going in with just like 3 or 4 players. You're capable of seeing a surplus of different players that you don't even know out in the world. And this is an upgrade that I felt PSO2 needed, because when PSO2 originally launched, players went into it ecstatic that they had a new anime MMO to play, and they came to the realization that the game was very instanced and that there wasn't really much they could do with other players, and that essentially all they did was they logged in, they appeared in their ship, and then they accepted a mission and deployed themselves, and that was essentially it. In New Genesis, it's going to be completely different. While you will still take missions, while you will still have quests to do, you'll be able to go out into the zone, you'll be able to see other players out in the world, you'll be able to combat monsters, boss monsters, everything. You'll be able to join groups. You won't even have to join the groups in the hub. You'll be able to join them out in the world. There'll just be so much community activity going on, and this is a drastic departure from what was present in PSO2, and I feel like New Genesis really needs that to take off, especially to separate itself from PSO2. Now, New Genesis is going to have an action combat system just like PSO2 has, but from what I've seen, this is actually a very, very highly upgraded, highly overhauled combat system. But the combat is not the only thing that has been overhauled. The character creator has been overhauled, and you can create some very impressive looking characters. And then you have the graphical engine that has been entirely overhauled. You have the ability to jump up mountains. There's a sense of vertical terrain interactivity. That is something that was not really present in PSO2. In this game, you have the ability to like fly up things. There is content that takes place on the ground and 10, 20, 50 feet above the ground. These are things that I never really got to experience in PSO2. I know there were a lot of bizarre, very absurd things that took place in PSO2, especially with regards to boss fights, but nothing that you were seeing in this game. Now, New Genesis, much like PSO2, is going to be completely free to play. And while we are definitely going to be streaming this over on Twitch in May because we did get into the PC closed beta, I do want to note that much like Swords of Legends Online and much like ELYON, I have not played all that much of this game, so I can't really talk about what the end game is going to be like. Next, we're going to talk about New World. This is, I mean, I want to go ahead and say it could potentially be the biggest MMO release of the year, but at the same time, I know that with how much Amazon have changed, the hype for the game, the anticipation from players is definitely dwindled over time. I know it is definitely going to have tens of thousands, maybe even hundreds of thousands of players playing this concurrently when it goes live, but I'm also not certain how many of those players are necessarily going to stick around long term. I know that there are going to be a fair number of players that probably issue a refund because yes, this game is in fact buy to play, much like ELYON, much like Swords of Legends. And honestly, from what I've played, and I haven't played this game in about 6 months now, I know they have overhauled a lot of content, but from what I played back during their last test phase, it was not really something that I was all that interested in. It felt very survival-ish and very PvP focused. And I know that they have made significant progress in terms of introducing additional PvE elements into the game. They have overhauled the combat system because the combat system was probably one of my main complaints, and I know a lot of people had issues with. I think 6 months, 8 months ago when we all had the opportunity to play that version of the test together. So I know a lot of improvements have been made to the PvE aspect. They've introduced dungeons, they've introduced a lot of content into this game. They have made it much more of a traditional MMO experience than it was originally. Originally, it felt like they had certain MMO aspects, but it was predominantly a survival game. And they kind of just threw those MMO features into the survival game, and it just felt like a cluttered mess. Like they didn't have a clear vision of what they wanted the game to be. And now they do have a clear vision of what they want the game to be, and I am definitely curious. I am definitely excited to see where this new version of the game ultimately ends up going. And I am genuinely curious to see whether this game is going to be as hyped, as popular as Amazon expect it to be. Because if this game fails, this is yet another failure for Amazon Game Studios, and they have not had a single success thus far. And trust me, they need one. Now, this game is an entire sandbox world. It has the ability to seamlessly run from one area of the map to the other. There are no loading screens. Well, maybe there will be loading screens that disconnect the dungeons from the main world. It utilizes action combat. Admittedly, it kind of felt like the Elder Scrolls Online, if you've played that, and there really wasn't much, if any, character creation whatsoever. Kind of the character customization you get out of a survival game. Next, we're going to be talking about Lost Ark. I know a lot of you guys have been eagerly anticipating Lost Ark for, man, I don't even know how long now. 3 years, 4 years? It has been far too long. I did my first Lost Ark video when I was still living back in Australia like 4 years ago. So yeah, I will genuinely be shocked when I finally have access to this game in English. See, Lost Ark was announced to be coming in 2021 by Amazon Game Studios, the very same people that are working on New World. Now, it is unconfirmed when specifically this game is going to release into North America and Europe, but it is expected to be releasing on or before August 31st, 2021. Again, expected to be. Now, I do want to note that Lost Ark is the only MMO of its kind in this list. It is a top-down isometric MMO, which means you see it from a different perspective than you would all of the other games, which are either centered behind you or from an over-the-shoulder perspective. Now, I know that some people are definitely turned off by top-down isometric MMOs, and that is entirely understandable. It really is kind of jarring for me as well. I like to get a close look at my character when I want to. I like having that over-the-shoulder perspective. To me, it just kind of allows me to experience the game in a way that I want to experience it in, and that is just not really possible from that top-down perspective. Now, outside of that, this game is absolutely gorgeous. The combat, which is entirely action, by the way, your abilities are bound to things like Q, W, E, R, T, Y, and ASDF. You move using your mouse as opposed to your arrow keys or WASD. There is an extensive character creator in this, but I mean, that stands to reason. This is a South Korean MMO. The world is open, but it is segregated, meaning it is split between loading screens like Blade and Soul, like Final Fantasy XIV. There is a very large emphasis on sailing in this game, which was very unusual for me. There are a bunch of different continents that you can sail between that have various different countries, that have various different cities, all that have their own unique aesthetic look and feel, Asian inspired, medieval themed. They put a lot of work into making the various different areas feel unique, and overall they put a lot of work into making this game feel very high quality. Now, this is probably the best top-down isometric game, period, not just explicitly an MMO, but game that I have ever played, and I've played my fair share of them. Now, this game is actually available in Russian, in Korean, in Japanese right now. I have a guide up on how to get in and play that if you want to go ahead and play one of those versions while waiting for the official English version to come out. But other than those 5 games, we do not have any other upcoming MMORPGs that are confirmed to be playable within North America and Europe this year. Yes, we have Tower of Fantasy that is currently in closed beta testing, and that will be available within China this year, and North America and Europe probably sometime next year. We have Blue Protocol that is going to be available in Japan this year, and then available in North America and Europe next year as well. We have Ashes of Creation, which is about to undergo more alpha testing, and that will be available sometime in 2024, maybe 2025. We have games like TL Origin, we have games like Project BBQ. We have a surplus of different MMOs that are all still actively in development, games that are currently undergoing test phases within their countries of origin right now, and that will be playable in 2022, 2023, 2024, like Arcade 2 as well. Like, seriously, there is a lot to look forward to over the course of the next few years, and I am eagerly anticipating being here to be able to cover all of them for you and to play all of them with you, because I mean, you know, this is kind of what I do. Anyway, guys, hopefully you are excited for one of these games. I genuinely hope you are, because all 5 of these games look like they will appeal to their own unique audience, and I'm glad to see that. I'm glad to see that everyone is going to target a different part of the market. PSO2 New Genesis is going to target anime fans. Lost Ark is going to target top-down isometric fans. New World is going to tackle fans that prefer the survival genre and that Western aesthetic look and feel. Swords of Legends Online is going to appeal to fans of the wuxia theme, and ELYON is going to cover the steampunk, really high fantasy aspect of the genre. So seriously, there has to be something in there that you are looking forward to. You know what, actually, let me know down in the comment section below which game you are most excited to be able to play this year, and let's talk about it. Anyway, guys, that is it for me. Thanks for watching. Hopefully you enjoyed the video. Don't forget to subscribe for more content like this, and I'll see you guys next time.
Someday soon, I'm gonna make it.